What is up, friends? I want to come on here and make a video about balance, taking some of the balance equation out of the picture. I want us to get a little chance to look at what our core, our back and our abs in particular, and the muscles of our hips are doing to stabilize our feet, or in this case, a foot and our hips in a single leg balance stance. This is going to be a small segment of a larger video, or at least a larger series about that skill. Single leg balance work is critical for your hip health, your joint health from hips, knees, ankles, feet, and your spine, which rests in your pelvis, because if you can't stand on one leg with stability, like genuinely not hover there, but be strong there, then your spine is not safe, your joints are not safe, and you're not only at risk of falling, which is just a legitimate worry, but you're not able to be athletic because you're not ever moving from a place of power and stability, right? So athletic for sport or athletic just for good movement, strong movement in life. One of the things that's a little tricky about single leg balance work is we get distracted by the wobbles at the feet, the wobbles at the ankle, right? The burning sensation, the fatigue in the feet and ankles, and we can feel that we are just globally unstable. So one of the things I think it's helpful to draw some attention to is what your core is doing, so you have a visual to appreciate both ends of the system, the foot contacting the surface of the floor, and the hip and what your core, back and abs, are doing to help that relationship, to help make this a stable position for you. So you can see here that my feet are basically the same height, right, as if I were standing on a level surface. I'm not quite level, but imagine that I were level. I am going to imagine removing the floor from under one leg. Maybe now I'm standing on a stair and this leg is hanging off, right? That's just an example of what I want you to appreciate. Here's my level floor and here's my level hips. Now, when I remove that stair, my goal in the balance workout, what makes this a strong, stable, single leg balance, is that my hips don't move. I don't lower on this side and fall. I don't overcompensate on that side and hip hike, right? I don't do anything. I just remove the support. What was 2 foot support, now it's only 1 foot support. This is now still on the ground, right? I'm hovering this leg. I want my hips to stay level, so that you can imagine if I'm walking and 1 foot is on the ground while the other foot is coming through in the stride, my hips similarly have a level, stable, safe experience. So like I said, we're feeling that at our feet. We're feeling that in the wobbles at the ankle, which is a very mobile joint. We want it to be mobile, but we have to be able to stabilize it for this exercise. And similarly, our hips have a lot of mobility, and our spine and our low back isn't naturally going to just be rigid. We wouldn't want that either, but we have to be able to stabilize it, and that comes from these muscles. So I just want to show you, I think this is a good image here, or decent imagery to work with when you're doing this practice. I can move my hips up and down, either by shortening one side of my body, so this is me pulling, cinching up on my abdominal and low back muscles, right? I'm pulling that foot. Now you see that those feet aren't staggered. It's not a huge range of motion, but they're about an inch difference as opposed to now they're level ground. Now one is floating off the ground. I did that by shortening the muscles on this side. Every time you take a step, part of how this side of your body is not falling to the ground is because of that holding up position. It's supporting and not letting this leg fall lower than the other leg. It's not collapsing. But the other, I can also do the same but opposite movement, which is I can push that leg further down. So now you saw that this leg grew from a lengthening here. That's different from shortening the opposite side. So I can shorten the system, or I can lengthen from the same system. One is me pulling up on those muscles, hovering the hip. One is driving down into the ground, in the walking example, while this foot, for example, can float. This foot goes through its step stride. So when you are doing single leg balance work, I want you to appreciate that you are, when I say push into the ground and don't just hover on the ground, that pushing into the ground action comes from here. I'm not saying, obviously I talk about short foot all the time. I talk about using and activating the muscles of your feet. I want you to feel like you're a starfish grabbing a rock with the arch of your foot, really getting action there in the calf, up the leg. It's a full system experience. But I want you to appreciate that you are holding one leg off the ground while you are driving the other leg down to create the stability you want at your hips. I'm going to show you this in a minute on standing, but practice it lying down in bed is great, sitting up is great, and I want you to be sure you can do both comfortably. You don't get pinching in your back, no pinching in your SI joint. Notice it's not to the side. I don't go and bring my ribs and hips together in a side crunch. It's a pull straight back. Pull straight back. No, I'm not bending that knee. Pull straight back from the waist, from the low back, the quadratus lumborum, muscles that run sort of obliquely to your spine. So here's the side view. More or less. Feet on level ground. If I want to, say I want to balance on my left leg, I'm going to push into the ground from those low back and low ab muscles. Simultaneously, I don't have to hover. I don't have to shrink up on the side. I don't have to hip hike, because by pushing down here, this foot, you can kind of appreciate, it's already off the ground. I cleared the floor by 1 centimeter. I'm fine just with the pushing action on this leg. But these muscles absolutely trigger to not let the foot fall, right? So I'm not necessarily actively hip hiking, but I'm holding as to not let the foot just fall to the floor, right? So practice this sort of gas brake action from your waist, from your sides. It's going to feel, you will feel it in your low back and in your abs, most likely, more so than just like right on the waist. You wouldn't really want to feel it so much here. You're going to feel it most likely sort of in the low back muscles, thinking muscles that run sort of like this from your spine, and that therefore pull up on the hip in this sort of oblique direction, and also those low abs, right? So shift and shift. Push down, I'm balancing on my right leg. Shift down, I'm balancing on my left leg. Shift down, support staff, shift down, support staff while I'm balancing here. All right, let me show you. So the standing version of that is this side of my body pushes into the ground to lift this, right? And it's awesome. I'm actually on sort of sloped ground, and it's fun practice, and I'm looking down. So notice here's me pulling up on that side waist. Here's me pushing down on that side waist to pop this foot up, right? Here's me hovering. Now this foot is just stabilizing, clearing the floor. This one is still driving down, which is what created space. But this one can hike higher. It can actively shorten, but it doesn't have to. And notice that that's going to distort my walk, right? I don't want to have to rely on this kind of walking gait. We see that. That is not very healthy for your spine. Instead, I want it to be down to hover to clear the floor. Down, here's my feet at parallel. Neither side of my body is pushing towards the floor. Now I'm pushing from here. I didn't bend my knees. I'm pushing from here, from my waist and low back. Push into the ground, hover the foot. Push into the ground, hover the foot, right? And of course, the hip muscles, I'm not trying to oversimplify it. What I'm trying to do, because it's a full body systemic exercise, but I want you to appreciate this detail because I think it's a pretty subtle piece that's really key. What I frequently say is don't hover on the floor. This is what happens. If I just lift this foot and I don't drive into that one, I am teetering. I always picture a scene from like Fantasia and like a cartoon elephant trying to balance on a pin or something, right? That is an incredibly unstable place to be, and that's not you engaging your muscles to create stability. That's you literally teetering and hovering, right? Especially when I'm like looking down here like this. I don't mean to loom over you, but that's what it's going to feel like. You're not going to feel strong and grounded. So instead it is push into the floor to pop this leg up, and then you are balanced, can do whatever you want on this leg. Push down to come up, right? This assists. So every time you walk, you can actually feel this in your own body. When you take this step through, I place weight here, drive down into that leg, create space for this hip to flow through. I can feel the muscles in my back right here. I can feel them holding my leg up. It's not a shortening, but they are helping that, they're assisting that hover. I can also feel, if you stick your finger kind of below your hip bone on your glutes on this side, you can feel them activate to hold that hip steady, all right? You can feel this in your own gait. All right, guys, I hope that's helpful. I went longer than I meant to. I guess maybe this will be a video on its own and not just a piece of a larger video, but I will insert it into a larger series about kind of undercover aspects of single leg balance training that I think will really make a difference. And I know there's people in my classes who are struggling with this, and I'm not saying to you that you're getting frustrated, but I want you to make some headway because this is really important. See you soon.